A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Romans. Brothers, I beg you through the mercy of God to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, your spiritual worship. Do not conform yourself to this age, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, so that you may judge what is God's will, what is good, pleasing, and perfect. The word of the Lord. Good evening, everyone. Such a joy to be back here at Annunciation, to be with all of you, to see some familiar faces, to see new faces, to those that have helped me through my time in seminary, as my time as a priest as well, for all of your prayer and support, I thank you. And tonight, as we gather together on this Mission Monday, we ask the Lord to renew us, to help us to process, to reflect, and to go to the depths of our grief. See, grief is a word that many are afraid of. Many run away from it, either because we are actually grieving the loss of a loved one, or if we've lost anything, especially in the last 12 months. Also, grief is something that is nerve-wracking for those that are called to walk with the bereaved or those who have lost anything. We get nervous, we don't know what to say. We ask the Lord to help us, to give us wisdom as we pleaded to Him in the Psalms, as we prayed this evening during this liturgy of the hours, this evening prayer. Lord God, give us the wisdom. And as we try to understand God's will, we try to understand how can our grief and our loss help us to experience transformation, to experience renewal, and that in that perfection that St. Paul preaches to the Romans and shares with the Romans as he's pleading them to not conform to stoicism and just ignoring the grief or ignoring the pain or ignoring the fact that growth is not easy, that it is a process. And as I was going through my own research and praying about this talk, I realized the words, and I remember the words of my professor in seminary: give me the fruit. I don't want the sweat. I don't want the research. Just give me the fruit. So tonight I will share with you the fruit of my own reflection as opposed to 15 pages of research. So I will spare you going through the details or the rigorous nuances of grief and, the 5 stages of grief, and how it's hard to be able to talk about these very deep and at times painful topics, or it triggers memories, it triggers our own fears, and fear being for us the opposite of love. That as we explore our grief, the things that we have lost, we realize that there is a fear of letting go of our loved ones, letting go of the things that we have lost, because we think that God can't do anything with that grief or can't do anything with that loss, that it's gone forever, that it can't be recovered, that it won't be the same without them, or without that job, or without that money, or those travel plans, or our health. We wish that reality could go back to what it was. And what we've all learned is that as we endure having to learn a new normal, having to experience new protocols, we realize that life goes on and that we adapt. We tap into an inner strength, a grace that the Lord prepares for us that only can be reaped and enjoyed if endured with Him. If we persevere, as love helps us to persevere, through those moments of grief, the moments of pain, the moments of death, isn't that what Lent is all about? Isn't that what our reflection of those sorrowful mysteries of our Lord, reflecting on His Paschal mystery and reflecting on the fact that it is through death that we are able to reach resurrection? We're able to experience renewal. We're able to rise from the ashes and become new. And what does that new look like? That's what part of the process of grieving is so hard, because we don't know. It is a risk. It is a risk of discovering that there might be something different about us, or different about our reality or our lives, our family, when we're able to process and truly allow the Lord to enter into our grief. And as we go through the motions of grieving, we know that we don't have to do it alone. To support and community, parishes that have wonderful bereavement ministries like Annunciation, that from my time that I was here as a seminarian, through my time as a priest, that I've come back to be able to be a part of funerals or be a part of the process, the beginning of the process of grieving, that this parish has always had that as a true hallmark of being able to walk with those who have experienced loss. From the sacristans to the cantors, to the musicians, to the Eucharistic ministers, to the priests, to those who give themselves and offer their time so that people know that they're not alone. One of the things that surprised me about going through the 5 stages of grief, and I've mentioned it to people, I've recommended it, but I've never really explored it myself. And what I've discovered is that one of the essential and crucial processes or stages of the grieving process is being able to come out of the isolation, or to not give in to the isolation, to the loneliness, to not of the fear of sharing and fear of letting others in. That as we go through our time, the season of Lent, that we have come together, gathered for masses, gathered for these Mission Mondays, gathered for rosaries, novenas, as we prepare for the celebration of St. Joseph this Friday, we realize that the Lord continues to heal us. But we can't just do it if we expect it to just happen. Just in the same way we wouldn't tell somebody, hey, just get over it, let it go. We can't expect that grace and growth and renewal is just going to happen without the work, without the vulnerability, without the openness. And so we open our hearts to the Lord this evening, to whatever it is in our hearts that we still mourn, whatever we're still grieving, whatever we're still holding on to, whatever interruptions or actual loss, family members, friends, routines, may we surrender that to the Lord today and allow His love to help us to endure, to help us to experience a renewal of our minds and our hearts, of our own will, to surrender it to God's will, and discover that the Lord has always had something prepared for us, even when things were unexpected, unplanned. You know, when you talk about God's will and you try to get somebody to accept, right, that final stage of grieving, of accepting, you're not going to get there the first day. You might not get there after a month or 6 months or 12 months. But helping and journeying with somebody, or if you yourself are experiencing that process of grieving and wanting to finally break through and accept what has happened as part of God's will, we discovered that it wasn't that it was done on purpose, that God didn't come after us, that we weren't singled out because we did something wrong or we didn't do enough. We discovered that we have a God that also wants to grieve with us, that also wants to bring new life into that death, into that loss, so that we can experience something new. And we know now as Christians that that's synonymous with resurrection. It's synonymous with new life as we near those Easter celebrations, as we near the time that I hope that here at the parish Annunciation you'll experience that through the elect and those who will be initiated into the Catholic Church through those sacraments of initiation, that as they pour their hearts and pour their lives into this preparation, that they will be made new through those sacraments. And we are made new through the celebration of the sacramental life. And part of acceptance is being able to welcome the Lord into wherever we are. Popular culture sometimes can teach us many things. Music, movies, TV shows, and God knows that I've had my share of binge watching of Netflix or Disney Plus, and just recently I started watching or finished the WandaVision series. I don't know if any of you have watched the WandaVision series yet, or if you have grandchildren, I'm sure you have Disney Plus somewhere. Subscribe, maybe your credit card, you don't know it yet, but take a look. Take a look. It's rated, for all families. There's some flashing scenes if you experience epilepsy, so maybe just fair warning. But something about that series that taught me that as, Wanda being a superhero, right? Part of the Avengers, maybe arguably one of the most powerful superheroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whatever. That Wanda, despite all her power, was not able to truly overcome or to defeat the foe that wasn't outside but within. Her own grief and the loss of her parents, her brother, and her beloved Vision. And that at one point in the series, I figured if I wrote all this, I might as well use one quote, right? At some point in the series, there's a scene where Wanda, this is maybe nostalgic for some of you if you grew up with the TV shows of the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, that it goes through all those decades, that there's a point where Wanda, you discover that she has been using these sitcoms to be able to escape from reality, escape from her pain and her grief, and Vision finally discovering that all of this has been an illusion, this reality that Wanda has created for her to be safe from the grief. Sits down with her and they share this moment where Wanda finally opens up and says this, that as she explains to Vision the exhaustion that comes with grief, the feeling of being knocked down by a wave again and again. How many of us have felt that way in the last 12 months? One thing after another headline, another tragic loss, another tragic event in our country, division being displayed in our televisions and phones, has felt like a wave again and again knocking us down. And then Vision encourages her to hope, to feel again, to recognize that her love is alive. But then he says this, but what is grief if not love enduring? What is grief but if not love enduring? Arguably one of the most profound moments in the series. And knowing the context and everything of what that means, that she could begin to let go, she could begin to accept. Because as even our funeral liturgies remind us that life is changed, not ended, in the reality of death, in the reality of coping with death, coping with loss. That love endures. As we prayed in the Psalms, in Psalm 136, that God's love endures forever. And that we can experience new life and renewal and transformation when we go to the depths of that grief. We go to the depths of what that loss means to us and what that person meant to us, the significance and the meaning, and that is what hurts. To say goodbye to the meaning, to the significance of waking up to your loved one next to you, to receiving their phone calls, receiving their text, to seeing and to celebrate milestones. I leave you with one final thing. I could go on for another 30 minutes, but I'm going to restrain myself. Another thing that for us, as Christians continue to ask the Lord for perseverance and for wisdom and grace, to be able to be gentle with ourselves, to be gentle with others, by our words and our actions, our gestures, even our looks, that we might understand that the Lord is already working in that person. Even if they're at their worst, even if they're still in their hospital beds, or they're still not taking your calls, they're still not taking your texts or responding to your texts, that the Lord is working in the depths of that person's life. And the Lord is also working in our lives. And so it's a challenge for us to be patient, to not to turn over the control of the outcomes that we want. Because, and just one last thing from WandaVision, that love is never self-protecting, but self-sacrificial. It's not about protecting our world and protecting ourselves and our loved ones and having a tight grip on reality around us. But as the cross challenges us, and as the season of Lent has challenged us, to be able to offer it up, let it go. Offer it as a sacrificial offering, our spiritual worship, our conversations with the Lord, our prayer of abandonment to divine providence. That is what it means to take up our cross and to follow Him each and every day, even with our losses, even with our grief, even with our pain. Easter Sunday is near, and resurrection is true, and it's happened. We know the end of the story. To be able to rejoice in it and celebrate it. Amen.